Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to call on the House to fund the Department of Homeland Security and avoid an unnecessary shutdown. Instead of having a real debate about fixing a broken immigration system, Congress is putting at risk government operations that serve the people we represent. And it's playing politics with the livelihoods of our federal workers. Threatening to shut down a federal agency because you disagree with the President's action is an irresponsible approach. We have got to move away from this kind of dysfunctional government and get back to legislating. That's what the American people sent us here to do. This current fight is exhibit number one of why folks don't think Congress works for them. The folks I represent want to see a government that is responsive, that provides needed services, that supports economic growth. Mr. Speaker, folks in my region deal in reality. Earlier this year, residents and businesses in the cities of Aberdeen and Hoquiam and Grays Harbor County, Washington, were swamped by heavy rains. Mudslides and flooding put people's lives at risk and took a toll on neighborhoods that they call home. Local officials were looking for help, and they got it when the Homeland Security Region 3 Incident Management Team came to town. This team worked with locals on the ground to execute the best recovery plan to get people back on their feet. Are we willing to tell workers like that who lend a hand at moment's notice to go without pay or take a furlough? And are we willing to tell communities in need that when they call for help, there's no one there? 14% of the department's workforce is facing furloughs. This isn't an invisible workforce. These are staffers who administer grants to local governments, their fire departments, and emergency responders after devastating storms. These are the people who are helping the management teams that are on the ground in places like Hoquiam, Washington. That staff won't be able to process emergency requests, won't be able to do their jobs because Congress isn't doing its job. Then we should also consider the over 80% of Homeland Security employees who will stay on without pay. What kind of message are we sending members of our Coast Guard or our Border Patrol or the Department when we tell them to work without pay? Mortgage payment? Still got to pay it. Utility bills? Still due. Grocery bill? Still got to eat. But paycheck? Sorry. Yeah, it's true. If the crew of a ship faced trouble in Washington State's water, the Coast Guard would still swing into action. But that crew wouldn't get paid for their work, and some of their support staff might not be back at headquarters to help them. I've already heard from members of the Coast Guard, spouses of department employees, and everyday citizens worried about how this will impact our communities and our national security. Because in my home state of Washington, there are more than 6,000 department workers, and we have 5 Coast Guard stations alone in my region. Shutdowns like this have ripple effects into our local economies too. When workers aren't getting pay or their pay is delayed, sacrifices are made. Less money spent at the grocery store. Friday dinner's night out stopped. Family vacations canceled or delayed. Impacts local restaurants, local hotels, small businesses. We've seen this movie before. Businesses everywhere took a hit when the customers they rely on aren't sure when exactly their next paycheck will come. Finally, we don't motivate our federal workforce by engaging in these stunts. We are proud of our federal workforce in my region, but too often, Congress does not let them know that what they do is important. Too often, they're a bargaining chip in a political fight. I came to Congress to give people confidence that their government was not broken, that it's staffed with workers dedicated to making a meaningful impact in their lives and in the lives of American citizens. We will not see qualified and motivated folks join a workforce that faces continuous threats to the job they do every day, when the message to our workers and to local businesses is that politics is more important than their paychecks. I want to end by mentioning yesterday former Secretary of Homeland Security Tom Ridge said that this shutdown was wrong and folly. These are soldiers at DHS, he said. They wear a different uniform, but the goal and objective and mission is the same, keeping America as safe as possible. Mr. Speaker, let's keep America safe and let's reject this shutdown. Thank you, Mr.